They marked my garden as a crime scene. Yeah, I know how that sounds, but that's what it looked like the morning a couple of strangers in crisp polo shirts hammered buffer zone signs straight into the dirt my dad taught me to plant in. All at once, I wasn't a homeowner anymore. I was a trespasser on my own land. I could see the neighbors peeking through curtains, little knots of whispers drifting across the street, the ground under my feet turning hostile. You ever feel the whole world tilting out from under you and you can't do a thing about it? Every snap they took of my roses felt like evidence for a trial I didn't even know was happening. There was a darkness in the air, something big, something organized, and I could feel it closing in one fake legal document at a time. If you've ever been blindsided by folks who smile while they stab you in the back, you know what I'm talking about. Tuesday started off like any other. Sun on my shoulders, mail in my hand, thinking about whether I should water the tomatoes before work. Those same tomatoes my father showed me how to space when I was 12, crouched in the dirt together checking the soil with our fingers, talking about the kind of patience it takes to make something grow. That little moment, 15 seconds tops, was all I got before I saw them two men matching shirts pounding a bright yellow sign into my front lawn right by the old mailbox Dad and I fixed after a summer storm. The sign said, Buffer Zone Property, HOA Jurisdiction. You ever have that moment where your brain just skips like there's no way this is real? I figured they had the wrong address. People make mistakes all the time in logistics. I work in freight. I know how a number gets swapped, how a boundary gets lost in translation. So I tried to keep it civil. Hey, you're putting that on my property, the stocky guy, Jim. His shirt said Jim didn't even blink. This is HOA buffer zone territory. Updated boundaries, sir. Like he was reading off a teleprompter. I've never been part of an HOA in my life. He just looked at me like I was lying or an idiot or maybe both. President Whitman expanded coverage for community protection. That's when my stomach dropped. I opened the mailbox, found a thick official envelope, the kind that screams bad news. Certified letter, all the trimmings. The first line made my coffee freeze. Persistent covenant violations and unauthorized use of designated buffer zone. And right there, $8, $500 in fines. I read it twice thinking maybe I'd hallucinated the whole thing. Fines for what? Breathing the wrong air. Living in my own house. It was like getting a speeding ticket while parked in your own garage. Their attached property survey had my land chopped up and relabeled as Section B, with coordinates that looked like someone drew them during an earthquake. Now I read property surveys for a living. Shipping routes, container lots, I know a fake line when I see one. This wasn't just wrong. It was criminal. So I marched out the real deed, laid it down for Jim and his buddy, but you'd think I'd flashed a gun the way they backed up. Direct orders from President Whitman. Jim said, radio in hand, talking about non-compliant buffer zone resident. The voice on the other end told them to document everything for more charges. There I was standing on my own lawn, property deed in my hand, treated like a criminal by people I'd never met. I threatened to call the cops if they didn't get off my property. Jim's reply, HOA has legal jurisdiction. When I asked to see proof, he pointed to the fake survey in the letter. Arguing with these guys was like trying to convince a brick wall that the sun's out. The younger volunteer, twitchy, nervous, started snapping photos of my flowers, my yard. Compliance violations, he mumbled, such as I pointed at my garden. Unauthorized landscaping modifications. I almost laughed. Vegetables and roses, apparently a federal offense. You ever feel like you're being pranked by the world's least funny comedian? Jim's radio barked again. Phase 2, implementation, install perimeter markings. They pulled orange cones from the truck, laying them out across my driveway right through my property. Now I couldn't even get to my garage. I stared at those cones. Property of Meadowbrook HOA was scribbled on the bottom. They had props for this budget set aside for stealing land. This wasn't neighborly bickering. It was organized crime wrapped up in community service. And I knew right then this was a war one I didn't start, but I'd be damned if I let them win. I turned my kitchen into mission control red penning maps, digging into county records till my table looked like a scene from CSI. I learned Meadowbrook HOA was chartered in 2004. My house was built in '98, 6 years before they even existed. The original boundaries ended at Oak Street. But every amendment, 2006, 2009, 2012, 2017, was full of missing signatures, delayed filings, all showing the same fraud. They'd grown from 37 homes to 68 just by doctoring paperwork. Other families had gotten the same threats, the same bogus lawsuits. I visited the Martinez family. They moved after 2 years of this. We couldn't fight anymore, Maria told me. Kids were scared. We just wanted peace. Her husband said we never knew if we actually belonged to the HOA. The paperwork was a mess. We couldn't afford a lawyer. That's the sick irony. HOA expansion requires signatures from every property owner, but the system ran on trust, on people being honest. Paige had played the whole county. I worked like I was tracking stolen freight, verified signatures, cross-checked coordinates, built a timeline. 8 years of systematic theft, families targeted because they didn't know the law, couldn't afford to fight, or just trusted the paperwork. She was farming people, collecting fees, fines, insurance premiums from scared neighbors. Golden Shield Property Protection, the so-called insurance, turned out to be a rusty P.O. box in a strip mall. I found 12 families who'd paid for protection that didn't exist. $18,000 in fake premiums, another $7,000 in illegal HOA fees. She'd even filed property tax exemptions on land she didn't own, stealing from the county while she robbed her neighbors. That's when it hit me. This was bigger than harassment or even property theft. This was federal crime territory. But here's the part that really kept me up at night. Paige acted untouchable. And when I dug deeper, I saw why. She'd built her own shield, public relations, mass emails, propaganda. Dangerous neighbor threatens property values, flyers on every doorstep. Suddenly, the whole block saw me as a threat to their retirement. Neighborhood patrols, cameras, anonymous notes. She'd scheduled an emergency HOA meeting to address the Daniel Harris threat. Friends vanished overnight. People who used to borrow my tools now treated me like I was radioactive. I've never felt so alone. But here's the twist. Mark Bennett, quiet guy, 2 doors down, caught me at the mailbox. "This stinks of coordinated fraud," he whispered. Turns out he's an attorney and he'd been reviewing the paperwork. None of this holds up. It's all built on lies. He said several neighbors had doubts. With Mark's help, I started documenting everything GPS on every bogus measurement, filming the volunteers, trespassing, time-stamping every fake violation. We were building a case, one that could take down the whole rotten tree. Mark explained the strategy: quiet title action. Instead of defending myself, I'd challenge the entire HOA's authority in court. Either I'd win and end her criminal empire, or I'd lose everything. But what choice did I have? I was fighting for my home, my history, and for every family she'd conned. That night, with volunteers still lurking outside, I realized HOA members are stuck in internal dispute systems, but I, as an outsider, could go straight to court. My evidence was bulletproof: deeds, surveys, timelines, testimonies from victims. I stored copies in fireproof boxes around my house. I couldn't afford a single misstep. Court day. Paige strode in like she owned the place, flanked by expensive lawyers, while I sat with Mark and my single packed evidence folder. The gallery was packed with neighbors, most of them sure I was the villain. Paige's opening pure theater, talking about community stability, property values, waving her forged documents around like holy writ. But then I stood up. "Your Honor, shouldn't we first establish if the HOA has legal authority over my property?" I laid out the county records, the forged signatures, the bogus expansions, the GPS coordinates. Mark backed me up with legal precedent. Then I dropped the hammer. Golden Shield was a scam insurance fraud, and here was the P.O. box, the photos, the families who'd paid. The judge's face changed. Paige's lawyers started to sweat. The neighbors started murmuring. Then I exposed the tax fraud, federal money stolen, double dipping. The whole thing unraveled in real time. Paige stammered, couldn't answer basic questions. The judge called a recess to contact the DA. When we came back, the courthouse lobby was a riot, families shouting, waving violation notices, demanding their money back. One guy ripped his notice up and tossed the pieces like confetti. Within hours, the DA, the insurance commission, the tax assessor, all opened investigations. The HOA's accounts were frozen. Board members resigned by email. The management company ran for cover. Page's empire crumbled. The HOA was dissolved by unanimous vote, no less. Neighbors who'd never agreed on anything agreed on this. Helen Brooks, the quietest lady on the block, turned out to have kept every original survey. Her records proved Page never had authority past Elm Circle. She got a standing ovation. All the money Page had stolen, $75,000 by the end, had to be returned. The insurance scam blacklisted her for life. She lost her job, her reputation, her home. I caught her in the parking garage as news cameras swarmed. "You had no right to destroy what I built," she said. "You built it on stolen land and stolen money," I told her. "I just showed the truth." I left her in tears. That was the last I saw of Page Whitman. Driving home, I saw kids playing in yards again, neighbors waving instead of hiding. The orange cones were gone, piled up on street corners, signs torn down. Sarah Johnson organized a barbecue. No fees, no rules, just neighbors. Every victim got their money back with penalties tacked on. My land was finally officially mine. The county recorded it so clear nobody could ever redraw those lines again. And as for me, I went from being the villain to the guy who set everyone free. The woman who tried to own 40 families now couldn't control her own life. Sometimes the only way to beat fake authority is to stand up alone if you have to and drag every dirty secret into the daylight. So what would you do if the whole neighborhood turned on you over a lie? Would you fight back or pack up and walk away? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. And if you've ever stared down a bully and refused to blink, yeah, tell me about it. Keep your feet on solid ground. Keep your papers close and never let fear run your life. See you in the next fight worth telling.